Does Utah have a game changer in Tobias Merriweather at wide receiver? JT Wistrcill of Locked On Utes is here to discuss that very question with me. I like this guy when he went into the portal. JT, I like this move for Utah a lot. Wide receivers, always a big question. They had a transfer departure in this receiver room. How big of a pickup is this to you, host of Locked On Utes?
It's big. Utah absolutely needed a wide receiver one, especially with their projected wide receiver one, Zacharias Williams. We're not doing a ton last season, having one good game to end the year, then a good spring ball. Then all of a sudden he's in the portal and at USC now. So you felt like you needed another guy to add, especially with their other wide receiver. They got a transfer. Utah State's Otto Tia came in. He was just okay in the spring game, had an up and down spring ball. So this was clearly the biggest need on this roster. And Spencer, for them to land a guy like this, who was a wide receiver that a lot of other people were after too, and to get into a place like Utah, that's a big news for this team. He definitely comes with some questions. He has yet to put all the pieces together. Didn't work out at Notre Dame, injured last year at Cal, but the potential is there. 6'5". If he can stay healthy and cut down on some of the inconsistencies and drops that plagued him while he was with the Irish, this guy could not just be one of the best receivers that Utah's had in a little bit, but I generally think he's got the potential to be one of the best receivers in the Big 12 this year, which is massive when, as you mentioned, you look at the history of Utah receivers in recent memory. Not great, Bob.
No, it has not been a rolling conclave of high-end receiver outputs. I don't think he comes in and goes for 1,000 yards, JT. No. It's not the way Utah plays football, but they don't need him to do that. I think that's a little bit of the advantage. If he had gone to, what's a good example? Like if he'd gone to Washington State, for instance, a pass-happy offense in the last several years. They have a new coaching staff there, of course. But if he was going there expected to be wide receiver one, I'd wonder, is that the best move? Maybe it's the best move available, but I don't know that it's the perfect situation. But for a guy who, as he said, hasn't really put it all together and doesn't come in with, a reputation like Trevor Pena, who had 900 yards and was an all ACC conference selection last year for Syracuse. He's, of course, made his way to Penn State. I think the expectations here can be tempered, but in a good way. And I don't need him to be good, but definitely has to be someone that stays on the field, because this tight end room is not what it has been in the last couple of years for Utah. Like, he's got to be a reliable target for Devin Dampier in at least 10 games, if not all 12, for Utah to push for a Big 12 championship.
I agree with that full-heartedly. I do feel like they need him to stay healthy, and they need him to produce. He cannot be what he's been throughout his career. As excited as we are about Merriweather, he has less than 500 collegiate receiving yards over his 3 seasons. I think he would have had more last year had he stayed healthy with Cal. He did have a good game against Wake Forest at the end of the year, caught a touchdown, around 45, 50 yards, but Utah needs more than that. They will, and teams are going to pack the box on this Utah team. A lot of early mock drafts have Utah having 2 first-round offensive linemen next year. Devin Dampier led the country in yards per carry last year as a quarterback. Wayshawn Parker, one of the best freshman backs in the country a year ago. Teams are going to pack the box. So can you win one-on-one on the outside? Merriweather's a guy who's proven capable of doing that. He was tracked last year as running over 20 miles per hour in a game too. So a guy who has the speed, can separate deep a little bit too. Big catch radius. We're talking about a guy who was a 4-star. So the talent is in there. Can he maximize it at Utah? And it is interesting when you mentioned like the managing expectations, because Utah does need him to be really good, because he's not in a pass-happy offense where it's like, oh, you're going to constantly be force-fed the ball. It's okay if there are drives where he's not as impactful as others, but there are Utah fans that are taking the hype a little out of proportion, because there is a reason he's already on his 3rd team. I do feel like, even if I do think he's moving up from Cal to Utah. Sorry, Cal fans, but I do feel like this is really good for Utah. It's just one of the another ones where last year Utah had a Damian Alford from Syracuse. He averaged 19 yards per catch last year. Or with Syracuse. With Utah, he didn't do anything. He threw an interception. Like, he didn't catch a single pass. So that's the other part that just makes me a little nervous.
Wait. Back up. He what, an interception?
He threw an interception. He threw an interception. They put him in the game.
The receiver.
Crazy type play. Yes, crazy type play. They threw him in the game. They threw it to him, or he might have just taken a snap. I can't remember. But either way, they threw it like right down to him. Then he threw an interception. This is a guy who had 600 yards at Syracuse, and then he comes to Utah and doesn't do anything. So Utah's history with transfer portal receivers, once again, not great.
How do they make it different here? And go beyond, JT. Go deeper than don't make him a secondary quarterback option.
I think what's encouraging is it's a new offensive coordinator. It is Jason Beck. It's a guy who last year, a couple of those receivers at New Mexico, even though the focus was Dampier and the run game, still had success, had over 700 yards receiving. The fact that he was leaving Cal, I mentioned, I think this is a step up for him. But the fact that he's leaving Devin Brown, some of the other things that Cal has going on to come to Utah's offense shows me that he's sold on Jason Beck's vision. And I think that's where the hope comes from, is that it is a new offensive coordinator. If it was a new offensive coordinator, we'd just be talking ourselves into the same thing, that this year it'll finally be different. And in a way we are again, but we have a reason to be, because last year, this offensive coordinator and this offense led by Devin Dampier was 4th in the country in yards per game. Are they going to be that in the Big 12? I don't think so, but I do expect this offense to make a massive leap forward when you look at the talent that they are assembling on that side of the ball. I don't see how they're worst, and especially because we talk, Spencer. I mean, you talk about all the time. What's the most important position on the field? Quarterback. I don't see how Utah got worst at quarterback. If you want to say it's not going to be great, like CBS had a list where Devin Dampier was a top 10 guy. If you don't think he's going to be that next year,
top 10 in the country?
They said top 10 in the country. If you don't think he's going to be that next year, that's okay. But I have a hard time believing, I don't want to be mean to Isaac Wilson, but like wherever he lands, he's going to be better than what Isaac Wilson was last year. So I think that's where the encouraging signs come in. It feels like this is an offense that is set to maximize its position players better. And Jason Beck just comes with a fresher approach than Andy Ludwig, who his style, I just think it kind of faded out. It had its time, 2 Pac-12 titles. We're grateful for that. But the change in offensive coordinator leaves me very optimistic that guys like Merriweather will be maximized in Salt Lake City.
How has he supported the other receivers in the room, the tight ends, which has been such a huge position for the Utah passing game in recent years with Dalton Kincaid and Brant Keithy? Those guys aren't walking through the door anymore. So how do you support a guy that's capable of being a number one option, but as we mentioned, hasn't been called upon to do that yet, and might be someone who you want to give a little bit of a grace period to before you're saying, hey, we're going to give you 12 targets a game. We need you to haul in 8 of them for 80 plus yards and a touchdown.
Yeah. Real quick, Brant Keithy actually still without an NFL home. That's one of the, if you just look back at what he was doing in college.
That's got to be injury driven.
I think so. It's just one of those crazy things when you look at how good he was going back to 2019, but that's just how crazy, how long he's been in college. Anyways, Utah, other pass catchers. Well, I will also say they just lost one of their top tight ends. Landon King went to Duke, unfortunately. So that's where you take a little bit of a hit in the tight end room. Tight end room is probably not the best, but this offense does maximize more on those receivers. I mentioned Otto Tia a little bit earlier. I didn't love what we heard in spring ball, but I want to give him more time. That is a guy who had over 400 yards last year with Utah State, played one of his best games against Utah. We know how good those Utah DBs can be. So he's a guy I'm looking to see emerge. Outside of that, you got Larry Simmons from Southern Mississippi. He had over 400 yards. You got Justin Stevenson, who had over 200 yards at Wyoming. You have Ryan Davis, who I am more excited. Ryan Davis is a guy I'm excited about. He had the connection last year with Dampier at New Mexico. So now he comes to Salt Lake City. I think that's a nice get. Creed Whitmore, an SEC transfer that Utah brings in. It's a lot of unknown and question marks. And I think one of the things that gets me really excited about Merriweather is he is a guy who has won against P4 cornerbacks consistently. Not a lot of these other guys we can say that about, but Merriweather is a guy. He's caught balls against Ohio State back when he was on Notre Dame. So he's done that. Can he stay healthy and be even more consistent? I believe there's reason to believe he can, especially if he's able to stay healthy and be maximized here. He's the most likely guy in this room to lead Utah in receiving yards. And outside of that, it's unlikely and unknown candidates who are going to step up. Wide receiver, not going to be the strength of this team in Salt Lake City, but there's a lot of reason to believe that Merriweather can be a bright spot on the offense.
Do you think he's the most important transfer on the team for Utah now, winter or spring cycle?
I can't put him past Devin Dampier. If that's I think Devin Dampier has to be.
Oh yeah, I always kind of put the quarterbacks in their own conversation subconsciously. I'm like, if you get past the quarterback.
I think he's second, because if you say, Sean Parker was a great get. Yeah, but the offensive line's so good. I still think they're okay there. Utah actually also added a running back, so still doing work in the transfer portal. We're not done building this thing out in Salt Lake City.